There was an early spring that year. By the 1st of March, the weather was warm, and the higher fields were dry enough for plowing. Jethro carried a rifle with him when he went down to John's place to work. Ellen fretted a great deal about it, but Matt insisted. Jethro had learned how to handle a gun properly, and it was always possible that he might bring down some kind of wild game for the table, or that he would have need to defend himself against a desperate man. The field he plowed that day in early March was bordered on the east by dense woods, and Jethro became conscious that each time he approached the woods side of the field, a sharp, harsh call of a wild turkey would sound out with a strange kind of insistence, almost as if some stupid bird demanded that he stop and listen. Once, when he halted his team and walked a little distance toward the woods, the calls came furiously, one after the other. Then, when he returned to his team and moved toward the west, they stopped until he made the round of the field. After several repetitions of this pattern, Jethro tethered his team and, taking up his rifle, walked into the woods. His heart beat fast as he walked, and his slim brown hand clutching the rifle was wet with sweat. Ed Turner was giving him a day's help in the field across the road, but Jethro chose not to call him, although he had a guilty feeling that he was taking a foolish and dangerous chance. He walked slowly and carefully, pausing now and then to listen. The call stopped for a while, and he was half convinced that they had actually come from a wild bird. He made no move for a few minutes, and they began again, softer now, more certainly coming from the throat of a man. Jethro stood quite still. "Hello," he called finally. "What is it you want of me?" There was no answer. Then the call came again, softly, insistently, from a clump of trees, one of which was a tremendous old oak, long since hollowed out, first by lightning, then by decay. Jethro walked closer, his gun raised, and after a minute, the human voice which he had been half expecting to hear called out to him. "Put your gun down, Jeth. I ain't aiming to hurt you. I didn't dast take the chance of Ed Turner hearing me call to you." He thought joyfully of Bill at first. He shouldn't have. Almost every night he heard his parents talking of Eb and of what uncertainties they would face if he were really a deserter and if he should suddenly appear. But Jethro had forgotten Eb for the moment. The possibility of Bill's return was always a hope far back in his mind. "Who is it?" he asked again. "Come out and let me see your face." Then a skeleton came out from among the trees. It was the skeleton of a Union soldier, though the uniform he wore was so ragged and filthy it was difficult to identify. The sunken cheeks were covered with a thin scattering of fuzz. The hair was lank and matted. It fell over the skeleton's forehead and down into its eyes. The boy stared at it without speaking. "Jeth, you've grown past all believing. I've been watching you from far off. I couldn't get over it, how you growed." Then Jethro realized who it was. "Eb?" he exclaimed in a voice hardly above a whisper. "It's Eb, ain't it?" There was utter despair in the soldier's voice. "Yes," he said, "I reckon it's Eb, or what there's left of him." For a few seconds, Jethro forgot the federal registrars and the fact that not only the word which preceded Eb, but his method of announcing himself gave credence to the suspicion that he was a deserter. But for those first few seconds, Jethro could only remember that this was Eb, a part of the family, the boy who had been close to Tom, the soldier who would have more vivid stories to tell of the war than ever a newspaper would be able to publish. He held out his hand. "Eb, it's so good to see you. Pa and Ma will be—" He stopped suddenly. He noticed that Eb ignored his outstretched hand. "Your pa and ma will be scared. That's what you mean, ain't it? Scared for themselves and ashamed of me." He paused for a second, then added defiantly, "I deserted, you know. I up and left old Abe's Army of the United States." Jethro could only stare at his cousin. He could find no words. "Desertin' ain't a purty word to you, is it?" "Well, I done it. I don't just know why." We'd had another skirmish, and there was dead boys that we had to bury the next day, and we'd been licked again. All at once, I knowed I couldn't stand it no longer. I just up and left. Once a man was left, he's done for. I've been a long time getting home, and now that I'm here, it ain't no comfort. Eb, couldn't you just come up to the house and see them for a few hours or so? Couldn't you have a good meal and get cleaned up and tell the folks all you know about Tom? I can't. I could get 'em into awful trouble. Besides, they'd probably just as soon not set eyes on the likes of me again. But Eb, if you can't come up to the house, what did you come for? Eb's face showed quick anger. I come 'cause I couldn't help myself, that's why. You don't know what it's like. You was always the baby and the pet of the family. There be things that are too terrible to talk about, and you want to see the fields where you used to be happy. You want to smell the good air of old Illinois so much you forget. You go crazy for an hour or so, then you don't dare go back. He shivered and leaned back against a tree trunk as if just talking had taken more strength than he had to spend.